Margaret Caldwell had never believed in second chances. As the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, she had built her empire on one simple rule: performance or dismissal. No excuses, no exceptions, no emotions. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Her glass office on the 32nd floor overlooked the entire city, and she surveyed it each morning like a queen surveying her kingdom, cold and untouchable. People feared her, and she preferred it that way. Weakness in her world was simply a failure waiting to happen. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Margaret strode through the lobby of her building, heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. She nearly slipped on a patch of wet tile near the entrance and grabbed the reception desk to steady herself. Her coffee splashed across her white blazer, and her perfectly controlled world cracked for one furious second. She spun around and saw him, Daniel Hayes, the janitor, on his knees with a mop, his yellow, wet floor sign knocked sideways, completely out of position. He looked up at her with tired eyes, dark circles carved beneath them, his uniform slightly wrinkled, his hands rough and calloused. "I'm so sorry, Miss Caldwell," he said quickly, rising to his feet. "I was just finishing up. I should have put the sign further out." Margaret looked at him with the kind of contempt only years of privilege could manufacture. She pulled out her phone, called HR, and in less than 3 minutes issued the order. "Fire him today, clear his locker and escort him out." Daniel stood still, and for a moment something flickered in his face, not anger, but a quiet, heartbreaking resignation, as if this were simply the latest blow in a long line of them. He nodded slowly and walked away without a single word of protest. The HR manager, Susan, hesitantly informed Margaret that Daniel was a single father of 2 young girls, that he had been with the company for 6 years, that he had never once received a complaint, that his wife had passed away from cancer 18 months ago, and that he had recently taken an extra shift just to cover school fees. Margaret listened without expression and said only, "Process the paperwork." 3 weeks later, Margaret's father, Richard Caldwell, passed away after a long and quiet illness. She had not seen him in over 2 years, their relationship strained by her relentless ambition and what he had called her, forgetting to be human. The funeral was small and dignified, and the reading of the will took place in the family lawyer's office on a grey Friday afternoon. Margaret sat with her brother and their aunt, expecting the usual division of assets, properties, and investments. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading. Properties were distributed, accounts divided, and then he paused and looked up. "There is one additional bequest," he said carefully. "Richard Caldwell leaves the sum of $40,000 and a personal letter to one Daniel Hayes, formerly employed at Caldwell Enterprises, with the note that Daniel showed him more genuine kindness during his hospital visits than most people show in a lifetime." The room went utterly silent. Margaret felt the blood drain from her face. She leaned forward. "Daniel Hayes?" she whispered. The lawyer nodded and slid a letter across the table. With trembling hands, she opened it and read her father's handwriting, familiar and gentle, the way he had always been with everyone, except, it seemed, the version of herself she had become. Her father wrote that Daniel had been a volunteer visitor at the hospital on weekends, sitting with lonely patients, reading to them, bringing small gifts for children in the ward. He had sat with Richard Caldwell many times, not knowing who he was, simply offering company and conversation to an old man who felt forgotten. He had held his hand the night the diagnosis worsened. He had prayed with him. He had never asked for anything. Margaret drove to Daniel's apartment that evening. He opened the door to find the CEO of the company that had fired him, standing on his doorstep. Her eyes red, her composure finally broken. His 2 daughters peeked shyly from behind him. She told him everything. She told him about the will, about her father, about the letter. And then she did something she had not done in years. She apologized. Not the polished legal kind. The real kind. Daniel rehired her offer with grace, returned to the company, and was given a position managing the building operations team. Margaret restructured the company's HR policies, created an employee hardship fund, and placed a framed copy of her father's letter in her office, where she could see it every single day. Some people need to lose everything familiar before they can finally see clearly. Margaret Caldwell lost her pride, her certainty, and her coldness, and in return, she found her humanity. If this story moved you, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe to our channel Kindness True Stories for more powerful, real, and emotional stories that remind us all of what truly matters in life.